All right, so today we're going to talk about graphing proportional relationships, and there's some pretty simple rules. And once you memorize those rules, then it becomes super easy, something that you can do kind of with no problem. Okay, so sorry, let me fix this. All right, so pretty simple rules to doing graphing proportional relationships. It's basically what we're doing is we're taking the information from the table and we're putting it into a graph, and then you'll see what the graph looks like. So here we go. All right, so proportion. Write this down, please. Proportional graphs. There are two main things, okay, that there are two factors, and it has to satisfy both for it to work. Okay, so the two things it has to satisfy in order for it to work are this. Okay, number one, okay, a proportional graph has a straight line. Okay, so make sure you guys are writing this down. All right. Right? A proportional graph will have a straight line. It'll look like a straight line. Okay. Number two, all right, it goes through the origin. And the origin is 0, 0. Okay, if you're doing coordinates, 0, 0. All right, so this is what characterizes a proportional graph. Those two things. If it's got those two things, again, is it proportional is a yes or no question. So it's either yes it is or no it's not. So let's look at some examples. All right, so let's write these down. Let's say I'm just going to put a few mini graphs here. If you need more space and write it out differently than I am, that's fine. Okay, so first let's talk about this. Let's say we had a little graph. And if you had a ruler, you can use a ruler. You can just kind of hand sketch it. Let's say on the bottom, the x-axis was time, and on the y-axis was money. So however much time you work, the more money you get, right? Okay. And let's say our graph looked like this. Okay. Let's look at our two rules. First of all, okay, and when we talk about the graph, we're talking about the red line, okay? First of all, is it a straight line? Okay, I know it's not perfect. My drawing isn't perfect, but yes, it's a straight line. Secondly, does it go through the origin? Origin is this point right here, 0, 0. Again, the answer is yes. Okay? So the answer to this one, right? And the question is this proportional? The answer is yes. This one is proportional. Okay? It is a straight line through the origin. Pretty easy. Right? So again, straight line through the origin, it is a proportional graph. Okay? This means that the graph shows a proportional relationship. If I was to put it in the table, all the ratios would be the same. I'll show you guys an example in a little bit. Okay, so what are some ones that what are non-examples, right? So what about if we had something that looked like this? And I'm going to do two non-examples here, okay? Okay, so first of all, what about, okay, sorry, we need, this is still time, and this is still money. All right? And let's say we had a graph that looked like this. So the question is does this represent a proportional relationship? Well, let's go through the numbers again. Number one, is it a straight line? Yes, we're good to go. Number two, does it go through the origin? No. So the answer is no, not proportional, doesn't go through the origin. Doesn't go through the origin. So it is not proportional. Okay. Next. What about a graph that looks like this? Okay, first of all, is that a straight line? No, so it fails. That's it. Done. You say not proportional, not a straight line. Okay. So being able to identify that is like super. It's super easy. Okay. All right. So let's see what an example looks like with that. Okay. Let's do an example together. And again, if you remember these two rules, straight line through the origin, I like from all my years of teaching, like this is one thing that people just understand. They get it really quick, and it's like, oh, it's easy. Okay. So here we go. Let's say that there was a school dance, and you wanted to go. School dances are fun, right? And tickets cost. Let's see. Okay. And I'm going to draw a little graph over here on the side. Okay. Okay. So one ticket, $4. Two tickets, $8. Three tickets, $12. Four tickets, $16. All right, so I'm gonna do a little sketch graph. Okay, your graphs don't have to be perfect. You know, like, oh, do I need to use graph paper? No, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can. You can always use graph paper. That's fine. Graph paper is nice. Okay, so you're gonna go to the school dance, and the tickets cost one. You buy one ticket, $4. You want to buy two, it's $8. Three, it's $12. Four, it's $16. Okay, so let's graph this. So on my little graph, I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna draw little tick marks here. So try to space them out as evenly as possible. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then this one I'll say is 4, 8, 12, 16. Okay, so we're going to graph these points. These are basically like coordinates, like 1, 4, 2, 8, 3, 12, 4, 16, right? So I'm going to kind of like it's written in that form, right? Like on a coordinate plane, okay? Now I'm going to assume that you guys know how to graph or remember how to graph. If not, you can kind of watch and see. Okay, so here we go. All right, first is 1, 4, so there's a dot there. Then is 2, 8, there's a dot there. Then is 3, 12, there's a dot there. There's 4, 16. All right, now you do want to connect the dots, and you want them to go all the way to the y-axis. So don't just leave them floating. Some people like to just leave it like that. Okay. You want to do as if there's a ruler there, and it goes all the way through. Okay. Now you have to be careful when you're graphing it yourself, because if you're like me, sometimes my straight line doesn't look very straight, or I missed the origin, but I'm supposed to hit it. Okay, so all right, so let's go over it. Let's see. Is this a proportional graph? What do you guys think? Yes or no? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up? Yeah, a lot of you guys are saying thumbs up. Yeah, let's remember, does it go through our two things, right? Is it a straight line? Yes. Does it go through the origin? Yes. So this is proportional, okay? Straight line through origin. The biggest mistake people do on this is they only list one. They'll say, yeah, it's proportional because it's a straight line. Well, we know that straight lines aren't necessarily what makes things proportional or not, right? It has to be both. So make sure you list both. Don't just say it's a straight line, okay? It's a straight line and it's through the origin, okay? Now, here's yesterday's lesson. Check it out. If you go to the table, right? Let's look at all of our ratios, okay? So this one is 4/1. This one is 8/2, which is equal to 4/1. This one is 12/3, which is equal to 4/1. This one is 16/4, which is equal to 4/1. Do they all have the same ratios? Yes. You see how it all works together, right? If the table is, then the graph will be. If the graph is, then the table will be. Okay. One mistake people make is they look at the table. Let's say there was only a table and no graph, and they say, "Oh, it's a straight line." Well, there's no line. Okay. Make sure you look. If there's a graph, talk about the graph. Do it this way. Okay. If there's a graph, talk about the graph. If there's a table, talk about the ratios are the same. Okay. That makes sense? Okay, let me show you just one more example, and then that'll be kind of it. All right, let's use that same dance example here for letter B. Let's say this. Let's say that you get you're going to that dance, but if you buy 4, you get a ticket for free. So if you got like 5 friends, you're like, oh, then we don't have to pay for 4. Okay, so fourth one, if you buy 4, you get one for free. You get 1 ticket for free. Okay, so here we go. So again, if you buy 1 ticket, it's $4. 2 tickets, $8. 3 tickets, $12. 4 tickets, it's $16. Same as before. But if you buy 5, it's not going to be 20, right? How much are you going to pay for that? Okay, right? 0, right? You're paying 0. So it's not 0, but it's going to be, you still paid 16. Yeah? Because you had to pay for the 4. Does that make sense? All right. Okay, so now let's graph this one. Okay, let's graph this scenario here. Same thing. I know I'm a little bit ahead of you guys, so just go ahead and catch up. All right, so again, I'm going to graph these points just like I did for example A, all right, and we're going to see. We're going to see what happens here. And again, if your graph looks a little bit differently than mine, that's okay. If you're spaced it out a little bit differently or not as spaced far, that's okay. The trick with making a good graph is just trying to make even spacing between your numbers. If the spacing is even, then it'll work out. Okay, so here we go. 1 ticket is still $4. 2 tickets is still $8. 3 tickets is still $12. So far, so good. 4 tickets, $16. Good. 5 tickets, also $16. So my graph looks like this. So what do we think? No, right? Not proportional. Does it go through the origin? Yeah. But is it a straight line? No, not a straight line. So it's not. That's it. Non-proportional. Not a straight line. Okay. And again, if you want to look at the ratios, right? 16 over 4 is not the same as 16 over 5. Those are not equal, right? The ratios are not the same, very clearly, right? Okay. Pretty easy, right? So again, that's all you're looking for. The whole thing when you're looking at a graph, and sometimes you have to graph it, but I think the IXL lesson gives them to you, is it a straight line? Is it through the origin? If it fails either one of those, then the answer is no. If it passes both, then the answer is yes. Okay? Pretty simple? Pretty easy? Okay, so that's it for this lesson, actually. That's the whole lesson, believe it or not. Pretty cool, right? So this is what I want you to do. I want you to oh, okay, so any questions? Okay, so Jarek has a question. What if it's near the origin? It's got to go through the origin, 0, 0. Now, that's why you have to be careful on your graph. Like, sometimes your graph doesn't look right. So think about it this way, right? What if I bought 0 tickets, right? How much would it cost? It would be $0. So if I were to do this one and have 0 here, it'd be $0. So I know it goes to the origin. Does that make sense? So Jarek has a really good question. He says, sometimes your graph doesn't look good. Like if you notice my first graph, I drew the line and it didn't really hit the origin. Just remember that that might be user error. That might be your own fault, right? So think about it. If I bought 0 tickets, it could cost $0. Okay, so that would be a point. So but it has to make sense, right? Sometimes it's not. You'll see in some parts where like that transaction fee, like sometimes say, okay, it costs this much to start. You might see a graph that looks more like this one right here. Okay, if it's like that, definitely not. But if it's just because you graphed it a little bit funny, then it should be okay. Did that answer your question?